The gates of the billionaire's estate opened slowly, their heavy iron frames towering over the modest figure of an elderly woman and the little girl holding her hand. The grandmother's clothes were simple, her shoes worn from years of hard work, but her eyes carried warmth. At her side, the child's laughter rang clear, clutching a basket of food they had prepared together earlier that morning. "Daddy will be so surprised," the girl whispered excitedly, her curls bouncing as she walked. "We made his favorite stew." Her grandmother smiled, though her heart beat a little quicker. She had never felt completely comfortable at her son's mansion. Its marble columns and wide lawns seemed a world apart from the quiet life she was used to. But her son was her son, whether in a simple home or the largest house in the city, and today was not about wealth. It was about family. They reached the massive front doors, decorated with polished handles that gleamed like gold. The grandmother hesitated, straightened her shawl, then knocked gently. The child grinned, her eyes dancing in anticipation. The door creaked open, but instead of her son, it was the fiancée. She stood framed in silk and diamonds, her hair perfectly styled, her fingernails long and painted a deep, glossy red. Her eyes swept over the two visitors, and instantly her expression shifted, from warmth to disdain. "Yes?" she said, her tone flat, one eyebrow arched. The grandmother smiled politely. "Good morning, dear." "We came to see him." "Brought some food." "Is he here?" The fiancée's eyes flicked to the basket, then to their shoes, then back to their faces. Her lips curled upward in what wasn't a smile at all. "He's not here. And next time, maybe you should call first." The little girl stepped forward, still hopeful. "He'll be happy. It's a surprise. We made it just for him." The fiancée's flawless nails tapped impatiently against the doorframe. She leaned down slightly, her voice cooling to ice. "Surprises," she said slowly, "are for people who belong in places like this." The grandmother's breath caught. The little girl's smile faded, confusion filling her eyes. Still, the old woman pressed kindly, her tone as respectful as ever. "We just wanted to see him. Surely it's no trouble if we wait." But even before she finished, the fiancé's laugh, sharp and cruel, sliced through the air, and though they didn't realize it yet, that was only the beginning of the humiliation to come. The little girl's hopeful eyes lingered on the doorway, still clutching the basket of stew with tiny hands. "Please," she whispered softly, "we just want to see him. It's Christmas and Daddy—" But the fiancée cut her off sharply with a flick of her manicured hand. "Daddy?" she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "You're just a reminder, a leftover from his past life. This isn't your home, and frankly, neither of you belong here." The grandmother's heart sank, but she held her dignity. Even when insulted, she straightened her back, refusing to let the cruelty spill onto her granddaughter. "We don't want to intrude, child," she said gently, her voice quivering only slightly. "We only brought food and love. That's all." The fiancé's polished laughter rang out like glass breaking. "Food?" She eyed the simple basket disdainfully. "Do you think he needs your scraps here? With chefs who prepare meals worth hundreds of dollars, do you think he'd ever lower himself to eat that?" The little girl clutched tighter to her grandmother's hand, her eyes stinging with tears. The warmth of excitement she had carried now faded into fear. Still, her grandmother bent down and whispered, "Don't cry, darling. We know the truth, and the truth doesn't change just because people are cruel." But the humiliation wasn't over. The fiancée glanced back into the grand hall and, spotting a housekeeper mopping, her lips curved in a wicked idea. She snatched the gray bucket from the maid's hands, ignoring her protest. Water sloshed dangerously against the metal rim as she staggered toward the door again. The grandmother's eyes widened. "Please don't—" But before she could finish, the fiancé's wrist flicked. The entire contents of the mop bucket, dirty, brownish water, murky with dust, splashed downward. It poured across the basket, soaked the carefully wrapped stew, and splattered against the grandmother's skirt and the little girl's shoes. The child screamed in shock, clutching to her grandmother. Tears streamed from her eyes. The grandmother inhaled sharply, holding her granddaughter against her chest, her own dignity now drenched yet somehow intact. She whispered, "It's all right, sweetheart. It's all right." The fiancé smirked at her work. tossing the empty bucket aside with a loud clang. "Consider this a message," she sneered. "Stay out. From now on, you'll never see him again. Not in this life." The grandmother's clothes dripped steadily onto the stone steps. The child shivered, her sobbing small and broken. Neighbors across the street watched discreetly, whispering but not daring to intervene. And upstairs, though none of them realized it, someone had just come home. The billionaire himself, quietly, unannounced, and in time to see everything. The bucket clattered against the stone driveway, its echo sharp and cruel in the winter air. The fiancée brushed her hands as if she had accomplished something meaningful, utterly oblivious to the shadow standing behind her. At the top of the steps, framed by the grand doorway of his mansion, the billionaire watched silently. He had arrived earlier than expected, choosing not to announce himself. He had expected warmth when he returned, perhaps laughter, holiday spirit, or the sight of his family waiting for him. Instead, what he saw sent ice coursing through his veins and fury burning in his chest. His eyes narrowed on the soaked skirt of his mother, the basket ruined at her feet, and the sobbing little girl buried against her grandmother's chest. His daughter, his world, standing in the cold, humiliated. At first he didn't move. He wanted to be sure, wanted to give her no chance to twist reality. And then the fiancée's next words confirmed everything. "You think you matter to him?" She spat at the trembling pair on the steps. "I'm his future. I'm his equal. People like you will always be beneath us." That was the final straw. Enough. The word came like thunder, low but rolling, and it froze the fiancée where she stood. For the first time, her confidence faltered as her head whipped around. Her face drained of color the instant she saw him. "Darling," she stammered. You weren't supposed to be—" But the fury in his eyes silenced her. He walked down the steps slowly, each step deliberate, powerful, his presence filling the air like a storm. His gaze never left her, but his voice carried across the entire driveway. "That woman you just mocked is my mother." The fiancée's lips trembled, her jeweled hands twitching nervously at her sides. "And that little girl you humiliated," he continued, his voice hardening with every syllable, "is my daughter, my blood, my heart." Silence rippled across the street. Even the neighbors who had been watching in whispers felt the weight of his words now, stepping back into the shadows of their porches. He stepped beside his mother, steadying her with a hand on her shoulder, then gently cradled his daughter's wet face with his palm. She clung to him sobbing, and he pressed his lips to her forehead. His anger boiled, but his first gesture was tenderness to the ones wounded. Only then did he turn fully toward the woman who seconds earlier had believed she had won everything, and in that instant she realized she had already lost it all. The fiancée's lips quivered as she struggled to regain composure. I didn't mean it like that," she stammered, her voice laced with a desperate laugh. "You know how stressful things can be. I was only joking. They showed up unannounced." "Joking?" His voice cut through hers like a blade. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with fury. He stepped closer, every inch of his height and authority pressing down on her. "You thought it was a joke to pour filthy water on my mother? To make my child cry on Christmas?" Her breath hitched, her eyes darting to the staff now watching silently from inside the mansion. The neighbors by the gate leaned forward nervously, sensing something unforgettable was playing out. She reached toward him, her diamond shimmering under the gray winter light. "Darling, listen, I love you. I just lost my temper. Don't let one mistake ruin everything we built together." He stopped her hand mid-air, not with violence, but with the kind of cold finality that left no room for argument. "You built nothing," he said flatly. "This home, this family, this life, they were mine before you, and they'll stand long after you're gone." Her mouth hung open, her confidence shattered. What are you saying?" He didn't blink. "I'm saying this is over. The engagement is finished. Pack your things and get out of my house immediately." He turned, gesturing to security. 2 guards stepped forward without hesitation, their footsteps heavy across the stone drive. The fiancée's legs buckled slightly as realization struck her. As the guards approached, she raised her voice desperately. "You'll regret this! After everything we had—" But his answer came with chilling calm. "The only thing I regret is ever letting you near." The two people who matter most to me. The guards took her gently but firmly by the arms, steering her toward the street. The glittering heels that had clicked so confidently. Across the marble halls now dragged. Against the stone. Her pleas ignored. The crowd of neighbors watched as her figure grew smaller. A picture of arrogance overturned. Meanwhile, he turned back to his mother and daughter. He removed his own coat, wrapping it around his shivering child, then lowered himself to his knees. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You should never have been treated like this. Not in my home. Not ever." His mother touched his cheek softly, forgiveness in her eyes even through the pain. "What matters is you came, and you saw." He nodded firmly, lifting his daughter in his arms. She clung to him, certain again that she was safe. As he walked them both past the mansion gates and inside, the message hung heavy and undeniable. Money builds houses. Respect builds families. And without love, all the diamonds in the world mean nothing.